people, you know, I don't know, be cold under the falls. Anyway, okay, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning with me, Peter Giblett, and him, Dave Wheeler. Morning, Dave. How are you?
Hi, Peter. Hello, everyone out there in Radioland. Welcome to Talking Niagara, where you get the best opinions because mine's included.
Yeah. At least until he dies.
Oh, hey.
Okay.
I'm still coughing. I feel pretty good. I was very I just can't go out. I had to get my son to buy me some groceries. I ran out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I hope this thing gets over pretty quick.
Yeah.
I probably won't be able to be a caller on Sunday night though.
Yeah.
Can't really take that chance that I'll be over it by now. So today I'll tell them to substitute me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, best doing it early rather than late.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to wait right till Sunday. And
well, you don't want to risk it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway. Yep. So you're on the mend. Even though the occasional coughing fit doesn't help.
No, but it doesn't hurt my ribs like
yeah.
That doesn't hurt my ribs like it did before. It was just kind of like it was like when I had a broken rib.
Well, usually that sort of stuff hurts the rib. Okay, so interesting question. And we were going to do this yesterday, but we ran out of time. Niagara Regional Police responded to a call about a person wielding a knife in the Church and Queenston Streets area about 11:25 on Monday morning. When they arrived, the person had already fled on foot. And the police, basically real-time operations center, which monitors a multitude of CCTV cameras in the region, provided officers with live camera updates as they chased down the suspect on foot. Right, and he was essentially arrested without incident at Niagara and Queenston Streets. And we were talking about CCTV cameras, and I think that's why we thought, well, this was an interesting point in relation to that, because clearly that's the value of CCTV cameras.
Yeah, but it's also you have no somebody who wants to know where you are at any time can do that, and they can tap into that CCTV camera. Anybody that wants to know anything about you can, and that is the drawback. So the plus side of it, of course, is increased safety. But on the other hand, I'll be walking down those streets all the time now, and every time I think somebody's watching me. But if I do think that, I'll just also have to think that at any time someone has their camera on me anyway, just for the heck of it, because anyone can. Well, there is no place you can go and be private anymore. You pretty well have to. And if you do, everyone will know where you are, because you'll go to a place, your house, and close the windows and stuff, and everybody will know you're in there. Because they can't find you outside of there.
Yeah, and also when you think about this, the police just take a random thing. The police arrest somebody on the streets, and I'm not going to say any race or anything like that. Police arrest somebody on the streets. There's a dozen people filming it, on their cell phones, right?
Yes. And let me remind you too of
something wrong, just in case the police do something wrong.
Yeah, but let me also remind you that there was a case years ago in the U.S. A man was there was a serial rapist that broke into women's homes and raped women.
Yeah,
they captured a guy. got a guy, and he kept claiming he was not the guy that did it. He was not.
Yeah.
But every one of the victims identified him as the man who raped them. And on the docket, he looked confused. He just kept denying. So they throw the book at him, put him in prison. And luckily for him, the serial rapist, the real serial rapist, continued to rape. And when they caught him, he was a dead ringer for the guy they threw in the jail.
And there was also a case in Toronto where there were two rapists that were the balcony rapists a few years ago, but there were two of them doing it. One in area A and one in close by area B. I forget the areas associated with it. But when they caught one of these guys, they accused him of doing a particular neighborhood, and he said, no, that's not me, I didn't do that. Right.
Well, yeah, but the cameras would have been able to distinguish one from the other if they caught them. I'm talking about a guy that's identical. So if the camera comes along and they pick up a guy like the one I said, and the camera says, oh, there he is, and they grab him and they put him on the docket, and the same scenario happens, and all the women come and say, that's the guy, and then they throw him away. Are they then going to keep looking for another guy? And in his particular case, he was just lucky. If that rapist decided to move to another town, he would have been in prison for the rest of his life. Now, that was before the DNA could exonerate a guy. Nowadays, that would have happened because the DNA wouldn't have matched. But there you go. Just because a guy looks a certain way, so the CCT cameras can make errors, but it's the world we live in. I think it is the world we live in, and there's no escaping it now. I do remember a lot of resistance towards it in the early days when Britain were had their cameras up because of the IRA and so on, but it felt they had to do that. There was a massive amount of resistance to it here. But
there was a lot of resistance to it there, but overall, most people felt, there was a wide sweep of things of, well, if you're not doing criminal activity, why would you be worried about
it? Well, it still is an intrusion in your privacy to know everything you're doing.
Yeah.
It's just it's the slippery slope thing. Yeah, I'm not doing anything wrong, but there's a camera on me. But what if I have a political affiliation? What if what if our government, I don't like what our government, what if our government takes a far left or a far right approach, becomes more totalitarian left or right? And I voice my opinions against that. Well, that government can find me anywhere it wants to, trump up a charge and throw me in jail.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the slippery slope, and the possibilities are the things that are the real issue here. Not that the safety part is very fine, but what could it be used for is what is the problem.
And that of course in Britain was actually a big debate, because but generally again, they said, well, we've got constitutional guarantees that ensure that won't happen.
Yeah, but it depends. Any government that will start snooping and looking for you is a government that knows how to get around those constitutional guarantees.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I think it's the argument's over now. No matter how many, I kind of feel creepy that I'm being watched all the time. But the problem is that it's here to stay. It's here to stay. It's already been a part of our government. It's there constantly. There are cameras on us everywhere. I think it's just a reality of life right now. You can't stop people from using their phone cameras on you, and basically the police and other security agencies are going to film you all the time. You can't go into a casino, a store. You can't go into a parking lot. There's a camera on you somewhere.
Yeah.
And course, the excuse for it is for safety and security. And I don't know. I like that aspect of it, but the fact that you have absolutely no immunity at all. Like, I mean,
Well, again, it doesn't stop the surreptitious robber who knows where the cameras are, because he's actually researched the entire area, making sure that he appears on as few as he needs to, keeps in the shadows, etc. Those people still get away with it.
Well, yeah, basically, you're.
They probably wouldn't get away in China, but you know, but here we don't have as many cameras as China. Even in UK, they don't have anywhere near a tenth of the amount they have in China.
If I was robbing a bank in China, I put my Xi Jinping suit on.
You'd have to, wouldn't you?
Then they come for the general secretary of the party. Anyway, so I just believe that that's just going to be part of our life right now, and there's nothing much you can do about it.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. Hundreds of Palestinian protesters gathered Thursday evening outside the fence where a student encampment is located in the University of Toronto campus, and these things are not going away.
Yes. They're not going to go away. They're all over North America, and you get all these. Well, at least we're not freaking out here in the States. They're freaking out, calling them terrorist and Hamas supporters. The whole thing is just about every university that I've heard so far are calling for the divestment of companies that are funding the genocide of Gaza. In other words, they're putting a big eyeball on the big companies that are making money out of the bombs and munitions that are being dropped on Gaza, which I think is rather a positive thing myself. There's a whole lot of profiteering going on here. Even Joe Biden has said that when he was talking about the bombs and the munitions and other military stuff that's being manufactured in the United States is sent to places like Ukraine and Gaza, they pointed out, well, these supply good paying union jobs in the United States. I mean, seriously, Joe? I mean, that's going to offset the kind of damage this thing is doing. Oh yeah, well, we're getting good jobs out of it.
Yeah, and arms dealers always profit from war, don't they?
Absolutely. Food, all kinds of profiteering is happening. Food, water, you name it, any kind of commodity that has to go into a war zone, there will be a black market. And a lot of the American aid disappeared, particularly in the early stages of the war. We dumped a lot of aid there, and a lot of it just disappeared and got into the hands of the oligarchs, which was a big problem for the Ukrainian government. And they've kind of quieted that down right now, but I think they're still happening. And then
this group that's occupying many of the things, well, the one in Toronto is called U of T Occupy for Palestine.
That's right. And from the river to the sea, unfortunately, both the Likud party and the Palestinian freedom movement are both saying the same thing, from the river to the sea. The Jewish Likud party wants the river to the sea for Zionists. Of course, the extremist Palestinians want the river to the sea for just nothing but Palestinians. But most of the people who are demonstrating realize the Israelis aren't going anywhere, and they realize the Israelis are trying to force the Palestinians off of the West Bank and Gaza, and so they're saying that Palestine has to be free from the river to the sea. So that means the West Bank and Gaza has to be free. And so anyone who criticizes these movements picks up on the lunatic fringe in each one.
Yeah.
And they focus in on that. Yeah, there are some weirdos that will hold up a Hamas flag. There's some weirdos that will hold up, a Zionist flag. The main force, though, the main part of these demonstrations are to divest from companies funding the genocide. The companies that the universities invest in, either whether through stock or other means, the students want them to be removed from the portfolio of those universities. That's the main thing. Then you've got a guy like Kevin McCarthy, or whatever his name is, the Speaker of the House, coming up and saying, well, these are Hamas terrorists and they have to get rid of them, and Netanyahu demanding that they get rid of. I hope we don't go stupid like that up here.
Yeah, at Columbia University in New York, the encampment was forcefully cleared on April 17th. Police began taking down makeshift barricades at University of California protesters well after violent clashes between protesters and counter-protesters.
There's a fellow by the name of Owen Jones. I don't know if you heard of him. He's a political commentary guy, a young British guy. Very, very good. I mean, I pretty obviously probably has some left-wing leanings, which most young people do, but he has very, 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 very good commentary on whether it's Ukraine or, in this particular case, Gaza. He's been all over it from the top to the beginning, and he compared the Columbia protests of 1966, the anti-Vietnam War protests of 1968, to the ones now. In 1968, the politicians, of course, said the same thing. These are extremists. They're terrorists, extremists, whatever. They're supporting the Viet Cong and all that. But a few years later, 1968, in Columbia, was celebrated as a time where students pointed out the injustices of the Vietnam War. Now the same thing is happening, and the same voices against them are happening, and the same sort of thing is happening. These people do not want, in that particular case, in 1968, the Viet Cong, and that cannot be thought to have been a great political move. They were accused of a lot of atrocities themselves, but what they were against is the big bombs that we were dropping on, and napalm and all that other stuff that was happening to the poor Vietnamese.
And that was
in this case, the same thing is happening, because they're not really supporting Hamas at all. They're against the bombing of innocent people, like they were in 68.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of, that's actually the thing that ties these eras together. You know, in 1968, the Vietnam protests, as you characterize them, yes, some characterize them as being anti-American, and yes, of course, they were in the regards of, it was seen as the Americans that were taking the action, so therefore the Americans bore the brunt of those angry protesters. But they were not anti-American in many other senses, because what they were basically demonstrating about was innocents being hurt in the situation. And while there were many combatants on both sides in close proximity to one another in Vietnam, as we well know, there was a lot of innocent people that suffered.
Well, all kinds of people that suffer,
and that's what the majority of people hated about the American involvement in the Vietnam War.
Well, the American involvement is here again. This time they're giving the bombs to somebody else to drop, and they're not restricting them. They said there's no red line. Here's all the bombs you need. There's no red line. Please don't bomb these people, but if you want to, you can. Despite what they're saying. But as far as
Oh, yeah.
these students are concerned, I celebrate them. I celebrate them. There may be some errors, or maybe a fool or two who backs Hamas. There might be a fool or two on the other side that backs the Zionists, settlers. But the fact of the matter is, like, a lot of these demonstrations include Jewish and Palestinian and other. There's not just Palestinian and Jewish kids in this. It's like worldwide thing. The fact of the matter is that this is not anti-Semitic. It is a divestment of the companies that provide funds for genocide.
And here's actually the interesting thing is there's a lady
Yeah, are
in
we
this
on? Where are we on? Metaphysical Mike. I haven't heard from him yet.
Yeah, I gave you his.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Marty.
I gave you his thing. We are on. Just only Mike is the only person listening right now. Okay, so there's a student.
We have a vast audience.
There's a student here that they that they got a photograph of at this demonstration, and she's wearing a black and white and blue what do you call it, wrap that she, material that she wears, which is often worn by Jewish women.
Yeah, there are all kinds of sects of Judaism, I guess, that wear different things.
Yeah,
there are some where the women have to walk 3 or 6 paces behind the men.
That exists in Islam as well. That's the irony of it. These people don't realize how close they are.
Yeah, Islam and Judaism, like they talk about the 3 Abrahamic faiths. Well, 2 of them for sure, Judaism and Islam, are very close. Christianity is a kind of an outlier. It is formed from, largely, once it got out of the Middle East, Europeans formed it, but the Middle Eastern people formed Judaism and Christianity. I suppose Judaism had quite a bit of effect when among the Ashkenazis and Sephardic peoples who lived once they were expelled from once the diaspora happened. They had slightly different directions. It's very, very interesting story. Very interesting.
Well, that's
and there is this movement now to get the red heifer or something and slaughter it in the temple. And I mean, I really don't think Judaism wants to go back to sacrificing animals like it did, 1,000 years ago. But I don't know. I know. But those two aspects of the Abrahamic faiths, are more closely aligned than Christianity is.
Well, I'm just curious about, so what's happening here at the campus? So the kids are actually demonstrating on the lawn outside U of T. Hey, Mary, I'll see you in an hour or two because I'm going to class.
Yeah.
And when you get back, oh, where's Mary? Oh, no, she's gone to class.
Yeah. Well, we have here a situation where the young normally have a much more progressive look at the world, as each young generation does. As those people get older, of course, they shift to the right because of practicalities. But in the meantime, they are a harbinger of things to come. And in 1968, they were a harbinger of the end of war, where the American people got more and more fed up with the war.
With the war of Vietnam,
and the war of Vietnam. And this is a harbinger of things to come. People are getting more and more fed up with how the Likud party and the Zionists are behaving themselves. Israel is kept being called a democracy, but it's only a democracy for ethno-religious Jews. There are some Palestinians, both Christian and Muslim, that are part of the population of Israel, about 20%, about 10 each, 10 Palestinian Christians and Palestinian Muslims, but they have special restrictions on them. They are not. They have special restrictions on them that the Jewish population does not have. So it's not although they have a pretty good life there, it's not the same. And then, of course, they are an apartheid state. They occupy the West Bank and they fence in Gaza and control it. Mike says, what did Mike say there?
Mike says it says there were 3 listening. I'm guessing what he's saying is you, me, and him.
Yeah, well, I was gonna claim you for a listener, but then Mike, but then Peter might claim. So I think we're gonna have to split you in half. I got half a listener, and Peter's got half a listener.
Yeah, it happens on days, and we get other days where we've got, we've already got 20 or 30 comments in the morning. It's just the way it is. By the way, I was earlier in the week. I was actually bumped into the people from Niagara 411.
Oh, good, yeah.
They were doing a mega show there in Fiddlers in St. Catharines.
Oh, good.
Sorry, Fiddlers.
I never watched them. I never listened to them either, though. So
I don't normally listen to them. I've caught up a few times a week later in the evening. I don't listen to them live because I'm not insane. I'm working at that time, right? Anyway, yeah. There are people listening. You see, Laurie Parliament saying, "Yeah, people are there." Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay, we got one each now.
Okay, so moving on from Palestine, unless you've got anything, I don't think there's anything.
No, it wasn't really Palestine. It was really much of our students and how our students are. And right now, I'm kind of happy that U of T is taking a moderate approach here.
And there you go. Here's the thing. Another one. You see, Alicia Mary listening.
Hi, Alicia. How you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. I thank everybody for watching, because I think that's actually one of the great things about broadcasting the way that we are. We're actually talking to people. We can put those comments up. We couldn't put those comments up before, so I'm glad we moved over to StreamYard. It was a step in the right direction. All right, and I do, of course, always thank and appreciate everybody's comments. I might not put all the comments up because not all the comments are always applicable, but they are. There's something that I think we should be proud of, that we've got people commenting, right? So I put
intelligent comments too.
Absolutely, mostly intelligent comments. Yeah, and we've got, and people have got things to do all the time, so our listenership goes up and down every day, all the time, right? But I think we're growing. We get more comments from more people now around, and I think that's a positive thing, right? Okay, so moving on, Niagara-on-the-Lake residents have launched a petition opposing the firing of the library CEO.
Yes, yes, they are. And as you remember, the Kathy
Simpson. Yeah,
Kathy Simpson. Yeah. So she wrote an article, and I really don't like the way the review wrote this, because she said wrote an article in support of a controversial right-wing group. If you look at that so-called right-wing group, there's not a whole lot of right-wing stuff about it. It is more or less a commentary about how I don't know, America ethics or whatever, and it has a whole lot of very prominent people that you normally would not have called right wing supporting it. and I think it's called Face or something, isn't it? But it doesn't say that in the article, which it should do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a lazy man's article there. And so it says a controversial right-wing group, but then does not name it in the article.
I think that was true. It was called Face, and she wrote an article about them. You know,
it says in support of them, and yeah. Now this whole article then goes on to talk about what should and should not be in the library, and people are getting alarmed that the library abrogated its own procedures by getting rid of her, and because they felt uncomfortable with her opinions. But there are people that are saying, she's doing her job, she did it well, and her opinion shouldn't have anything to do with what's going on there. And of course that idea that I brought up many times, that if you can't find Mein Kampf in your library, then there's something wrong with your library.
Yeah.
When I was 16 years old, or 15 or 16 years old, I asked the teacher, and his teacher told me, go down to the public library. If you want to read Mein Kampf, it's there. So I went and got it out, and couldn't read much of it because it was a terrible book. and so I just, got rid of it, returned it. But the fact that it's there, and a spokesperson for that library that
you should have the right.
Simpson has said that has to be there. If you want to understand the Holocaust, you're going to have to read Mein Kampf.
Yeah. And essentially, the reason why you've got books like Das Kapital and Mein Kampf in there is because the library is open to all viewpoints.
Yes. When I talked to the librarians in our own library here in or the people that are running our library services in Niagara Falls, the two ladies that came to speak to us, I pointed that same thing out. If I went to the library to get Mein Kampf, can I still get it? And they were quiet for a second, and they looked at me and says, there are thousands of things in this library that will offend you if you go looking for them. In other words, and they say, we believe it's your right to make up your own mind.
Yeah.
And they believe in intellectual freedom. Do the people who threw out Kathy Simpson, do they believe the same thing?
Yeah. And that's an important point. So Andrew Porteous, who served on the library board in 2011, that hired her to become CEO, while the group was critical of the board for terminating her, he said its campaign isn't about rehiring her.
No, but
they objected to the way that the board fired her and a waste of taxpayer money.
That's right, because the woman did her job, did it well. She was hired by them back in 2011 and did her job up until that time, and people got uncomfortable with her so-called support of Face. But if you look at Face, now here it says here, both Powell and Porter said the library should be allowed to have books that provide a range of ideas from Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf to I Have a Dream, writing and speeches by Reverend Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Powell said the same principles should be applied to books about LGBTQ issues and those texts that advocates or believe in anti-trans. You have to have a whole full gamut before you can judge, and it's up to you. And Porteous said the library also held texts of major religions, including Islam and Christianity, as well as documents of alternative religions, such as the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster and
Absolutely. Whether you think, you might think they're a nutcase, but hey, they've got the right to be heard.
Pastafarianism.
Pastafarianism, yes.
Yeah,
spaghetti monster and pastafarianism, yeah. Well,
but here it doesn't talk about that particular group, because and and I would like to have a real examination of that group face. When I read about it, I really don't think I would have been that supportive of it, but it did not look to me as if it was something that was scary, something that we shouldn't look at, something that if you supported it and I didn't, I would never be really too objectionable to you.
Yeah, I rarely support any of these groups, to be quite honest, but I support their right to have their viewpoint. Always support their right to have their viewpoint.
Let me just look up who belongs to it again and see if I can find out.
Yeah. Well, it's the same actually if we talk about the question about Diagolon, right? Again, Diagolon have the right to have their viewpoint be out there. It may be a disgusting viewpoint, right? I don't think we can disagree about that.
Well, I can't find it, and I'm not even sure it was called Face anymore. But the thing is, it should have been part of the article, and I don't see it as part of the article.
Yeah, no. I think it was something like Face. I think that was something like it. Yeah. Fast forward, why don't you?
Well, I'm trying to find the old article. We have it here somewhere in a file, but anyway, we can go on to the next thing. But the fact of the matter is, that particular organization that she was supposed to have been in support of, that she wrote an article in support of, is not that bad of an organization. She may have been writing an article in support of the policies of the Conservative Party of Canada. Would that raise hackles? But this was an American one. So Niagara-on-the-Lake will be sued and taxpayers will lose. Yeah, I think Kathy Simpson could probably make a case to sue them if she really wanted to. But if she did, then it would be the taxpayers that would have to pay. So I'm not so sure she wants to do that, but they may have to come up with a pretty nice little package to send her off, a severance package, which is never really good. I mean, it's a waste of money, really.
Anybody who enters into such a position should always negotiate a severance package anyway.
All right, so we're all at work, right? We're at work. Let's say we all go to GM, and you believe in Judaism. That guy over there is a Muslim. That guy over there is a Hindu, and and I believe in far right politics. Let's say, are you not allowed to work there? Your union may not approve of your far right politics or your religious affiliations or something like that. But you have a perfect right to work there. The company, those people who hired you, might not exactly conform to your ideologies. Do you have a right to work there, or don't you have a right to work there? Now, Kathy here is.
Well, the only exception to that,
because of an opinion she had.
Yeah, the only exception to that might well be if you had a viewpoint that was contrary to your employer, where your employer was politically involved, let's say. For example, if you were working for a union, or if you were working for a political party. Yes. You couldn't exactly be a member of a far right group if you were working for the NDP, could you?
No, you couldn't.
It just stands to reason that if would be a condition of employment, that if you were involved in a political party, you would have to be you'd have to be in the NDP. It wouldn't necessarily be a valid condition that you had to be a member in order to have your job.
Yes. So. But as I said before, I wish they would have put the name there, and I should have looked it up. But if you look into that group, it was a Jewish guy who started it. A Jewish guy, and I think he was motivated maybe by his religion or his attitudes towards whatever it was. But he did not like what his kids were learning in school and the sort of accepted narrative of the worldview. So he wanted to point out certain things that he felt were important, and somehow it got the right-wing label attached to it. I'm not so sure that's a proper thing to do. Sometimes it's just common sense things that people talk about. He may be right, he may be wrong, but he has had a fair amount of support from reasonably minded people.
Yeah.
And
hey, I probably agree with him that I don't like what my kids were being taught at school. But that's actually where you have a parental duty to be part of your child's education. You know, as a parent, you you send your school to learn kid to learn that broad church of ideas that are out there in school, but you take on the responsibility of discussing issues that might be important to you at home, and actually educating your child in relation to your own home viewpoint. You know, it's perfectly valid to be a member of the Conservative Party and put up conservative viewpoints to your child, or a member of the Communist Party and put up communist viewpoints.
Fair. It's right? Called fair. It's called fair.
It's
Foundation
called
Against Intolerance and Racism. Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. So this is supposed to be a right-wing group.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. All right. Anything else on that?
Well, I'm going to see if I can find who.
Mike is off because he's doing his duty. All right. And Chris Simone says hello.
And it has an Ontario chapter. It's about fairness, it says. And like I said, it was started. It's got a picture of Martin Luther King on it, and it has "I have a dream that my 4 children," and it's got another picture of Douglas on it, the Civil War black freedom fighter, and multidiscipline. Our purposes: fair education, fair legal. Constant drumbeat of racial essentialism, goes on and on. I think it really executive is Monica Harris, who is a black woman, who says there are human values and they should not be bounded by ethnicity, color, sex, sexuality, religion, or political persuasion. So this is the organization that the Niagara-on-the-Lake people have gone against. And the picture of all the people there, and they're of every color. There are the famous Jonathan Haidt, who's very important, and Lisa Davis, Daryl Davis, musician. We have authors of Islamic studies. We have Stephen Hawkins, not the famous one, but a researcher and a speaker. Frederick Luskin. I think it's got McWhorter as part of this too. There's all kinds of people. You can see them. They are mostly black and brown people, and this is supposed to be the right-wing group that. Now they might be right of center, but they're supposed to be for intolerance. So I'm not so sure that. But it says Novak refers to FAIR as a growing militant political organization that goes against what the library stands for, and the board could not accept. Have they really looked into it? Seriously, that's my point.
Yeah, and that could be true of any organization that you could kind of put up there. If you don't look into it and you don't understand what they're about, then you're in, you're potentially, all wrong. And actually, okay, so then the question you talked about fair. They also have got a quote here by Abraham Lincoln. So they've got numbers on their website. They've got a number of quotes, right?
Yeah, look at the people they're referring to.
Yeah.
Look at the color of their of the people that are involved, and I'm not really certain. And they may have very conservative ideas on how to get there, but I don't really see them as a group to be feared.
Yeah, and you see, okay, so here's a question.
I might not agree with them.
To express free speech, to suppress free speech is a double wrong. It violates the rights of the hearer as well as the rights of the speaker. And that's Frederick Douglass that said that.
Yes, and that's a Civil War freedom fighter, who was a black guy. Yeah. So these people are maybe conservative thinkers, but they seem to have the right kind of idea. I can't see how they can be called a far right organization. When you talk about a far right organization, you usually think on the fringes of the conservative thinking. Well, these people seem to be fairly mainstream.
Well, and they've got, okay, so under their programs, they've got arts, education, medicine, legal network, and, room for volunteers. They do advocacy on whistleblowers, letters and comments, and open letters to general people. So whatever, whatever, they have a right to their viewpoint.
Yes.
And as you say, they have an Ontario chapter.
So what is it? What is wrong then with a librarian in a private time writing a letter of support for an organization like that? Obviously, there's things there that are very appealing. As soon as I open it up and I see all these people being quoted, black leaders of the community, freedom fighters, of all those kinds of things, obviously the first thing you're going to think of this is a positive thing. You'd have to dig a little deeper to find out whether or not it is conservative or exclusive of any kind. But just because it's conservative,
do I support them? That's not, I'm not saying I do, but I'm just saying on the surface, I see nothing objectionable here.
Look, I don't support the Communist Party of Canada, but I support it should be here. I don't support. I don't really care for much of its writings, but it is allowed to write. And if anyone were to write a letter of support to the Communist Party of Canada, who cares? So the Communist Party of the United States. So I think Miss Simpson's got a raw deal here.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, and hey, you might disagree, exactly as you said. The Communist Party of Canada has a right to exist. And, that's part of our constitution, the right of every political party, no matter the persuasions, to exist. Even if the Communist Party of Canada were to actually build enough votes to actually become the next federal party in Parliament, that's a constitutional right. That's part of our constitution, right?
Also, the People Party of Canada too. You have to go the other way to the far right.
I know. But any of those parties, if they got elected to being our next federal parliament, whatever you might think of them, they have the right to do it. Right?
Yeah, but you, if any extreme party starts to get that kind of power, then you have to be concerned that your democratic ideals are not being.
Maybe, but we also have. I accept what you're saying, but we also have constitutional guarantees within the basis of our system, political system. Yeah.
So I think Kathy Simpson got a raw deal here. I think if you read that FAIR website, I don't see how it's an ultra right wing site at all. It seems to be very much maybe a conservative idea how that gets done, but the only thing I noticed is the double negative in the name.
Yeah.
Where's the double negative?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they've got a variety of people across all walks of life by the looks of this as on their board of advisors.
Yeah, so they I'm not so sure. I think people should just relax. You know, there are different opinions out there, and this particular organization does not seem to be a threat at all. And I don't really think it is contrary to the ideologies of the Niagara-on-the-Lake library. Those people there said that Kathy Simpson had to go because the people were uncomfortable with that article she wrote in endorsing that conservative group. But seriously, that should be none of their business, right? She does her job. She did it well. She's done it since 2011.
Yeah.
You know, so she has the perfect right to do her job and hold her own political beliefs. And if she was writing in support of a group that endorsed the violent overthrow of the government, yeah, you might be able to make that point, but she didn't. It was pretty ordinary group, if you ask me.
Okay, so anyway, Chris Simone says the thing he notices about that is a double negative in the name. Anti-racism is a double negative, and yes, absolutely it is, right?
I suppose so, yeah.
You know, anyway, yeah, there we go. So okay, so I want to move on to something the last thing I think about. Okay, so with policies relating to technology already in place in Niagara's English-speaking school boards, the province's forthcoming cell phone restrictions are expected to mean minimal changes in our local classrooms.
Yes, and I don't know. I think this article is almost a waste of time too. It's just a filler, basically. So you have the province has had a problem, and I've recently talked to a teacher a person that's training to be a teacher. So she's gone to teachers college and all that, and she's been in front of students. That's her biggest problem, getting them away from their phones. So when she's standing in front of the kids, she can't the phone. She can't get their attention because they're always on the phone.
They're like this, aren't they? You know.
Yeah. Now, some teachers have independently said, well, you got to put all the phones got to come up to her desk during her class, then they get them back when they leave. So other things like that. And I told her too. I said, you just get a big box and everybody's phones go in it and they get it when they get back out of the class.
Yep.
It's becoming nearly impossible for the teachers to regulate this. The kids, particularly those who are easily distracted, will be on their phones. Now, the province says, okay, that's it. No phones in class. I agree with that 100%. Like in my mind, I think it's a super idea. I don't think there's any place for a phone in a class. So this gives the teachers the right to control the phones that are in the school, in the classroom. And this is a tool that teachers need, absolutely need, because TikTok and X and Facebook and Instagram just suck the minds right out. I mean, they suck the mind out of me sometimes. I get on my phone and I go video after video, the things that interest me, and I'll be doing something on history, something on geography, something this, and what am I doing? I'm just reading little snippets of this and that, which interests me, and I'm losing time here.
Yeah.
But that a student, these are a major distraction. The cell phone is one of those things, can be a very positive thing and very negative thing, or just a neutral
And that is part of the problem with it, because what you don't want to do, what you want to have is those students to have the ability of having the cell phone around them. For example, if there was criminal activity or there was an assault or something like that, they need to be able to ring somebody, who can get them to safety.
Yes.
Right. And that may be that, hey, mum, this is going on, or dad, this is going on at the school at the moment, which brings the parent to the school, which is, compare that to our day. Probably the first time the parent would have heard about it would have been, sometime later, when we came home, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And okay, so back in the day there was a lot more innocence. In that time there was a lot more innocence, a lot less problems, but that was what it was, right?
I'll say an analogy of this. If there was such a thing as a little TV when we were kids, this big, that actually brought in all the channels, and you could take it to school, you would have in our age. So if you want to think of it that way, if for parents of nowadays, if they want to think of that, like imagine a TV coming in to you, a little handheld TV, and your kid gets to watch it while the teacher's trying to teach her lesson, his or her lesson. So the whole idea is good. Get the cell phones out of the class. Get them, turn them off. I went through school without a cell phone. Almost everybody else did. I didn't have a little TV that I could watch while the teacher was teaching. I'd probably still be in school today trying to get my grade 12 if I had one of those, because I would never have passed.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, absolutely get you. Get it. Absolutely. You wouldn't have passed, and that would have been the end of your school life, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we are.
But again,
we're making everybody weak. We're making everybody very, very weak. They can't read a map. They can't do math. They can't do division because they get the phone and they can do it anytime they want. I could tell you that all the math I reluctantly learned in high school, I used in one job or another all my life, or even at home when I'm trying to figure out percentages or whatever.
Yeah. Same here. I spent much of my life as a programmer. So even those obscure mathematics that most people don't use, like, trigonometry, algebra, and that sort of stuff, I used.
And Chris Simone says, as a parent, using the phone as a reward or punishment does not work. No, but in school, take it away from them.
Well, at school, it's not needed in the classroom. I get there's a box at the front of the class. Put your phone in it, right? Take it out when you leave the class, right? That's how it should be.
Yeah, I think so. Like our teachers used to grab our playing cards. We'd buy hockey cards or baseball cards or football cards. We'd have them. All the boys would have them. The girls would have other little things, and the teacher would then see that they were talking about these and trading cards in class, and she would grab all the cards and put them in a box, and you got them. Sometimes you got them at the end of the week. You didn't even get to use them because we'd go out at recess and play games, one game or another of chance to see who would win what card. But she would take them away from us. Like the teachers would take them away from us and keep them in her desk, or anything else that was distracting us, the teacher would take away from us and put it in her desk and give it to us back later. Whether it was a ball, whether it was trading cards or anything else. No phone in yoga class. There you go. The authoritarian Chris Simone demands no phones in yoga class. How cruel. Did they let them in gyms?
No.
Yeah. I don't know if people use them in gyms, kind of dumb for having them in gyms. I used to have mine if I was expecting a call from my kids or something. Normally I didn't like having my phone on me when I was in the gym, but if I was expecting a call or something like that, I would carry it around with me in my pocket. I didn't really like doing that because I was more afraid of wrecking it than anything. And I didn't really want to listen to anything on, sometimes
Well,
if I did anything,
think,
I would take a little iPod and put music in. That's what.
well, I think if back in our day, if there was anything that would have distracted us, it would have been the transistor radio, right?
Yeah, and there was a little ear thing that you could put in the transistors, and
Yeah.
the transistor radios really didn't work that well. I remember we were down in Florida. I bought a transistor radio for a little more than $1.
Yeah.
1960, 1967, when my family went down there. So I got one. I mean, but it would work, but I'd have to almost be upside down backwards and holding my hand up like this and my other hand out like that, and then I could get reception.
Yeah, because you were the aerial.
Yeah.
But yeah, you that's exactly it, right? Okay, everyone in the gym is on the phone taking self. Okay, gym. Yeah, okay. In terms of adult gyms, yes, taking selfies in the changing room
Taking
and
selfish, I like that better.
and using workout apps on it. Yeah, I get that as well.
I suppose it could be convenient for a workout app. I guess I personally wouldn't want it there unless it was providing me with some kind of music that I could just stick a headphone in.
Well, yeah, I was going to say there's these new ones, of course, in gyms. You got these things, what Peloton and that sort of thing, whereby now you've kind of got this. You're in a group and everybody's doing it, so you've got to keep up with the group. Do another 10 steps, Dave. You got to do another 10 steps. Without the other 10 steps, you're not going to get to the end. Get them going, Dave. And you got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. You're there at the finish line.
I see that as an authoritarian group, and you're losing your mind to the will of the many. That's my over-the-top explanation. I would say that, yeah, I suppose if it's going to help you get in shape or whatever kind of game you want to play with it, to me, go to the gym, you work out, that's what you do.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, all right. I think we can kind of call it quits at that point, right? And I thank you all for the comments you've made. There's a lot of good comments out there, and Laurie, yeah, absolutely right. Everybody at the gym's using cell phones, using the phone for whatever it is they're using it for.
I say, you know what? I suppose so. I just used to get a kick out of the guy, the guy that was about my age or middle-aged to senior guy that would come to the gym with his hair perfectly in place and brand new stylish gym clothes and smelling to the high heaven of some kind of cologne and sort of doing this marching around with his brand new shoes and so I thought that was probably just as bad as having a cell phone.
Yeah, okay. And I do appreciate that there's no phones in yoga class for Chris Simone's yoga.
How could you be, though? Really, seriously, you're supposed to, yoga is supposed to, I mean, how can you with that kind of distraction?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, you can't. Yeah. No,
but all right. Well, you know what? Chris Simone is the yoga Nazi, right? No cell phone for you. 1 year.
You can't contort your body with a cell phone in the middle of it, can you?
No. Well, we got the authoritarian, brutal dictator, Chris Simone, yoga dictator. No cell phones.
There we go. All right, and I think we've now pissed off as many people as we can on an average Friday, without getting sued. I think we should kind of leave it at that, Dave.
I guess so. Well, I appeal to everyone. Please keep an open mind. And and without further ado, I bid you adieu. Let's pray for peace. Let's stop that Gaza thing first. Let's get that done with, and then stop sending and find some kind of I don't know, some kind of peace treaty in Ukraine, so all that blood has to stop pouring out into the ground. There is no amount of glory to a dead person who's lost their life and can no longer be with their family. I don't know. It's just the wrong.
And we've lost Canadians in the Ukrainian war. Let's be honest about this. In fact, actually, as I understand it, there's going to be there's some Canadians being honoured in Ottawa next week for their participation.
As long as it's not the Waffen SS like they did before.
No, I don't think so. All right. And I can't say any more than what I know.
All right.
Okay. All right.